Hey everybody, this is Blake here, and welcome to my review of Fast and the Furious 6, or as the opening credits say, Furious 6. I'm not even shitting you. That's actually the title according to the opening credits. So would I call myself a fan of this franchise? I guess I've been watching all of the movies and to a point even look forward to seeing them, but at the same time I have to admit that if they decided to end the franchise with just this or the next movie, because they do really set up for a sequel, I wouldn't be too sad. Whereas, even though I gave a lot of shit to Iron Man 3, I'd personally love for them to continue making those. So I guess take that as you will. I haven't watched these films many times. I've seen them all, I think, once, twice maybe when they first came out in theaters, so my memory is pretty fuzzy. The first Fast and the Furious really does deserve credit for being an actual movie. You'd think, based on the marketing campaign, that it would just be a lot of racing, hot chicks, and attitude, but it actually did a decent job at fleshing out its characters and made you care for them, and it had a real story. In fact, the cars and the racing was just part of that story. So yeah, I'd say it was a good film, and then the sequel pretty much was what I thought the first one would be, which was a lot of racing, a lot of cool cars, hot chicks, and characters with attitude, and that would be the extent of that characterization. And but at the same time, it really came out at the perfect time for me, because when that was released, I was in high school, and I was in a phase where I was obsessing over cars, so that movie was heaven to me. I'm sure if I watched it again, it wouldn't hold up very well, but based on memory, I did think it was entertaining for that reason. Tokyo Drift is more complicated in that when I saw it, I was surprised that they actually did try to do what the first movie did, which was emphasize script over spectacle. And while I think they did a decent job regarding that, it just was lacking in energy. I mean, when I watched that, I just thought it was sort of boring, but not bad. I blame the lead actor. I can't think of his name right now, and I've seen him in a few things. And he's not a bad actor. I just don't think he's a charismatic leading man. I think had they got somebody even like Vin Diesel, even if he's not actually Vin Diesel, somebody who has much more of a presence, that would have made the movie pretty good, in my opinion. Fast and Furious, though, sucked. I remember the trailers so vividly showing off this epic action sequence, and then when I saw the actual movie, that same action sequence was just as epic, but it was the opening action scene, and then the rest of the movie was so flat in comparison. Honestly, I don't remember anything after that. In fact, I was really confused, because I kept thinking, how did Letty supposedly survive this? Because I was thinking that she died in Vin Diesel's arms, but I was thinking of a totally different scene, because after the first 20-30 minutes, I can't remember jack shit about that movie. And then of course it also has what might be the worst title for a sequel of all time. Seriously, you're just going to take out the "thes" from the title of the original film, and that is your new title? The only title that might be worse is The Final Destination, just because it just adds a "the," and it wasn't even The Final Destination, damn it. So yeah, that one sucked. But then Fast 5, I loved. I actually prefer it more than all of the other films, and I think what the reason why I liked it is you could see the producers or director or whoever is in charge of that film in terms of creative input, they realized that Fast and Furious sort of killed the formula. They realized that it was becoming stale, so what they did was they wanted to make it the most epic Fast and the Furious movie possible by bringing all of the different characters from previous movies, putting them together, actually using them to their fullest potential. I mean, everybody has something to do, and they're all incredibly entertaining to watch, and their interactions aren't a letdown either. I just loved watching them bicker with each other, and they all play off each other very well. The actors all deserved a lot of credit for that film, because in a lot of ways they carried it, but they also changed it from being pretty much a race movie to just a straight up action heist film with some racing in it. And I loved that. To me, that totally saved this franchise from becoming just bland and boring. Because I think one of the problems with Fast and Furious, the fourth one, was that it just it just showed that they kind of had run out of ideas when it come to just racing. So yeah, I loved that film. I thought it was one of the most entertaining movies of its year. But really, I can't say I was totally looking forward to seeing Fast and the Furious 6. The trailers just weren't doing anything for me. I didn't like the fact that they brought back Letty. She apparently was revealed to be alive in a stinger for the previous film, but I missed that, so I didn't know they were doing that until I saw the trailers. And the action scene just seemed a bit too silly. I mean, Fast 5 definitely, was edging towards being absurd itself, but I still went along with it. This film, it just, like, the whole thing with the plane, which, by the way, is the finale, so thanks for spoiling that, trailers. It just seemed too ridiculous. But then I watched the movie, and I had reasonable expectations. I wasn't expecting it to be as good as Fast 5, but at the same time, I figured it would be better than the fourth one. And you know what? I enjoyed it. It's definitely not as good as Fast 5. In fact, one of the things that really worried me too was I felt the gimmick of bringing back all of these characters was also going to become stale. I mean, the novelty by this point has worn off since we saw them all together in the previous film, and just throwing in Michelle Rodriguez and a few other people, granted, it's not just her, into the mix, that isn't necessarily anything to get me excited over. But once again, they use them all very well. I think everybody has plenty of funny moments where they could all stand out, and they all affect the plot in various ways. So really, and I have to give credit to some of these actors, like Ludacris. I'm not a big fan of his acting abilities, but I thought he did a really good job here. I thought he had good comic timing, and at least he didn't take away from anything like he usually does. At the absolute least, he's better than RZA. But yeah, everybody deserves a lot of credit for doing a lot really good well. And if you want to see a lot of this character or that character, they all have quite a bit to do. Even The Rock. I was a little worried that The Rock would pretty much show up at the beginning and the end and wouldn't be present throughout the rest of the movie. I don't know why. Maybe it's just because I've seen The Rock in so many films this year that it would seem odd for him to have another big role in an action movie. And action movies usually take the longest to film too, but nah, he's prominent throughout the entire film, and he's great as always. The action scenes, there are a few ridiculous moments, but with the exception of one sequence, I had no real issue with it. In fact, the plane thing, yeah, it's definitely over the top and ridiculous, but I thought the director filmed it in a way that I can just go with it. In fact, I think that's what it really came down to. The one scene that bothered me was, well, let's just say that when two characters there's like this big chase scene on this bridge, and I'll say two characters sort of fly into each other. I thought that was just so stupid, and I blame more though just how it was filmed. It just seemed really oddly. I didn't like the camera angle. It just made it seem incredibly phony. Whereas at least the director's on top of his game for the whole plane sequence. So even if it is impossible to pull off in reality, it was done in a way that I could just go with it. I could accept it as being part of this film's universe. It's kind of weird though when you think of how over the top the action set pieces are in the previous few films, when the first one actually was really grounded in reality. But I guess that's what you expect. I mean, First Blood became Rambo, First Blood Part 2, and when you consider the jump between those films, and then even with Rambo 3, yeah, I guess sequels that start off with, or films that are humble in their origins ultimately are going to become crazier in the sequels, so you can't really help that. And the action is non-stop too. I will admit I did not like where the plot went in some areas. I thought some ideas were cool, like how the villains in a lot of ways are kind of like counterparts of the good guys, and I thought Luke Evans was spectacular as the villain. He's charismatic, but you also love to hate him, and I love those kinds of villains. In fact, I might say that he's arguably the best villain to appear in any of the Fast and the Furious films. Primarily because I don't remember the other villains very well, so yeah, he was great, and I thought that was a cool idea, and I thought they utilized it decently. But I can't unfortunately say what I disliked about the plot without spoiling too much. one, and you could kind of tell where I'm going if you've seen the previous films, is they do confirm that this is a prequel to Tokyo Drift, and at the very, very end of the movie, they even have a scene that happened in Tokyo Drift. But maybe it's because I don't remember Tokyo Drift well enough that it almost felt like they kind of rewrote that scene. Maybe I just need to watch it again. Maybe a certain character's fate was more off screen than I'm remembering, but it's shown on screen now, and I have to watch it again so I can understand. And that actually, in many ways, is probably my biggest criticism of Fast and the Furious 6, is you really do need to know your stuff from the previous films. Even though I've seen them all, I guess either my memory just isn't that good, or these movies aren't that memorable, as fun as they are. But there were so many parts where I just was drawing a blank where they reference previous films, like the main villain, I believe, from the fourth film, he shows up at some point, and I was like, who is this guy again? Who is this Bragg? Oh wait, that was the last movie with Michelle Rodriguez, so he must have been the main villain from that film. But even when he appears on screen, I still didn't recognize him. And then there are other events that are kind of referenced, or like I said, that whole thing with Tokyo Drift, where I probably should have just watched all of those movies right before seeing this. Then at least I would have understood a lot of this stuff. So, Fast 5 didn't give me that same problem. Even though I didn't recognize some of the supporting characters who helped out, who actually didn't return in this film, I believe, I could still follow everything that was going on in spite of that. Here, I will admit that I was sometimes lost because it does rely on you having a lot of information about the previous films. But, honestly, I had fun. Was it a great movie? No. Was it as good as the previous one? No. Will I list it as one of my favorite movies of this year? No. What about this summer? Well, unless everything really disappoints me, probably not. I thought Star Trek Into Darkness was much better. As for Iron Man 3, I probably won't compare the two because, Fast and the Furious 6 isn't aiming to be a good film. It's aiming to be good entertainment, and as such, it succeeded. Iron Man 3 aimed to be a good film, but my own biases will keep me from judging that objectively, so I'm not going to say which one's better or not. I think I liked this one a little bit more than Iron Man 3, but that doesn't say much, because Iron Man 3, it was a pretty decent film. It was just fucking trailers. I'm not going to go into that. I cannot bring myself to go into that, damn it. So would I recommend it though? If you liked Fast 5, definitely check this one out. If you didn't like Fast 5, then don't bother. You won't like this one either. If you haven't seen Fast 5, I presume you're not a fan of this franchise, so I probably wouldn't bother either. So yeah, you have to consider all that on your own. I did not do a written review. I did do a written review of, what was the last one? Shit. The Accidental Spy with Jackie Chan, and then of course Dragon with Donnie Yen. So check those reviews out. They're on my website. I plan on reviewing some movie called Smiley, which I hear sucks, but people requested that I review it, so I'll probably watch that tonight and release a written review of that tomorrow. So check all that out. Be sure to follow me on Twitter. The move is mostly finished. This is not the place I was moving from. The other place is where I was moving from. My living situation is complicated, and I don't want to go into it. But I hope... I don't want to make any promises, but I hope I'll get a Critiquing the Critics episode up this week. We'll just have to see. So that is all I have to say. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys later.